Of the banter here, and we're talking still about Penn State and Ohio State. Andrew, I'll hand it over to you.
So we're just going to briefly discuss here Penn State's college football playoff future. I'm going to jump in here really quick here, NOS Energy, and then we'll let you take it from there. Does Penn State deserve to be a top 10 team coming with the rankings coming out tonight? Honestly, I'm going to say no, that we are very rubber ranked, and thank God for the AP poll that comes out in the preseason, which allows us to be up there based off of recruiting. But I mean, thank God for the other mayhem that's happened around the nation with college football, or else honestly, you can make a strong argument that if things would continue on the trajectory that they're going on, which I'll briefly lay out what I think could potentially happen. It's not out of the realm. Is that if Indiana beats Ohio State, Penn State fans should be a little concerned then about our chances to make the playoffs, because we would need. You can make a strong argument here that we were going to need help, because what would happen then is that, let's say Oregon and Indiana play in the Big Ten championship and one of those teams win. Well, you're going to be sending Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State definitely in. Oh yeah, and then us, we're going to have a seat possibly at the table. And then let's shoot over to the ACC really quick. If Miami and
we don't have any other undefeateds because Clemson lost this weekend.
That's true. So, but let's say if Miami and SMU play and SMU wins that game, well, SMU automatically is in, and then Miami's going to have a debate. We're going to be in a debate with Miami then about that, which
I think we win that debate. But
still,
we have no top 25 wins. We have no top 25 wins going into at the end of the season, which again will matter. It really will matter. The Big 12, you have, I mean, Iowa State, I know just lost, so they have one loss, but again, you have Kansas State, Iowa State, you have Colorado, and I forget who the fourth team is, or I think it's Texas Tech. But let's just hypothetically say that you have like an Iowa State versus a
BYU in there.
Okay, BYU is undefeated. Let's say you have BYU versus Iowa State, which a lot of people think is going to be the matchup, and let's say Iowa State wins that. Again, now you have a conversation there too, and then the SEC. I hate to say it, we have no chance against. I mean, well, maybe with Texas A&M, but you're gonna have, or maybe Alabama, but you have. But thank God Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, because that was a terrible loss. Yeah. But you have Georgia, who I think definitely gets in. You have Tennessee, who I think will probably get in. You have an Ole Miss, who will probably get in, and then you have an Alabama potentially too. So, not saying that if we win out that everything's going to go clear, but there is a potential where things get where it could be a chance where we don't have a home playoff game.
I'll agree with we may not have the home playoff game.
Do you think we're in though?
I disagree with some of your comments though. So Big 12, they're not getting 2 in. I'm sorry. The AP, and I'm assuming the College Football Playoff Committee is going to kind of mirror this. Their talent is subpar. Every time they've gone out of conference,
but it's not about the talent. It's about the.
But hear me out, because you're saying the same thing about us as far as the top 25 wins. So whenever we look at the Big 12, their out of conference schedule when they play high ranked teams. I'm going to look at West Virginia, Penn State.
Right.
We blew them out.
Right.
Like. That's where, when you start looking across that, I think you look at these conferences, and the SEC, I think, is still the standard. I think Big Ten is probably right below it. And then ACC and Big 12, I think, are way down. I don't see 2 teams getting in there. And I understand your opinion about Clemson and Miami, but when you look at Miami's schedule, they clawed their way through that. They didn't win easily. They didn't look – there were no style points.
Agreed.
So I think from that end, if Clemson beats them, I honestly think Clemson gets in, and Miami better luck next year. Like I think in the pecking order, I think you're going to see a one-loss Big Ten team hold. And this goes, I think, just across the board. I don't think this is circumstantial. I think a one-loss Big Ten team is going to sit above a one-loss one-loss ACC or a one-loss Big 12 team.
Which again, which is fair. But again, like we don't know what could happen though.
No, but you look at the SEC, they still have to play one another. You still have the SEC championship out there.
Right.
You still have some of the other matchups here down the stretch where I don't know if all those teams you mentioned get through the season.
We didn't even mention Pitt, right? Isn't Pitt?
No, they just lost to SMU.
Oh, did they?
They got smacked. So
okay.
As a Pitt alum, I can tell you that was not good.
But again, everyone thinks that Boise's going to get in. But again, if Army somehow remains undefeated too, Army will have an. No, yeah. I know only one. I know only one team out of the.
But they'll knock out Notre Dame.
That's true. They would knock.
They have to go through Notre Dame.
They would knock out Notre Dame. So that is basically a elimination game. But
so that's where. And granted, there's still games ahead of us, and we're going to get into that in a second. But I do think we're a top 10 team. Again, just with how the seasons play out and how the rankings occur. Do I think we're necessarily the 10th best team in the country or better? That's up for debate.
Yeah.
But as far as the rankings go, I think we stay in the top 10. The AP poll that came out on Sunday has us at 6. Like we've talked about, there's not a Big 12 team ranked inside of that. So with that, they're going to jump us, which tells me we're probably sitting somewhere between 7 and 8 whenever these rankings come out tonight. My forecast for what I think is going to be seen is number 1 Oregon, 2 Georgia, 3 Miami, 4 BYU, just because playoff predictor.
Right.
So they're going to win their conferences is what I'm essentially saying. Number 5. So this is where you start to get back into the teams that are, again, the at-large.
Yeah.
Ohio State, because, they have Indiana down the road. Indiana's look good. Who has Indiana played? That's my question. Yep. And don't get me wrong, they have taken care of business, which is all you can ask somebody to do. And that's one of my arguments for Penn State is we've done what you've asked us to do. We've traveled to USC, we beat them. But I have them at 5, Texas at 6, Penn State at 7, Tennessee at 8, Indiana at 9, and I think that's where they're going to end up. But I also think even with a loss to Ohio State, as long as it's not a blowout, I think Indiana kind of stays in that 9-10 range. I have 10 Notre Dame because the only game they have left on their schedule is Army and then USC. And I'm coming back to that. There's a reason I say USC. 11 Alabama and 12 Boise State.
That's true. Yeah.
And the reason I say USC is they are doing the same thing they did last year. You take them out of contention for a national championship and they give up.
Yep.
So when you say we didn't beat a top 25 team, you are correct. Technically speaking, Illinois was when we played them. I know they're not anymore. But USC is better than their record.
Right. I would agree on that one.
So when I look at that, we travel 3 time zones to get out to the West Coast. We play at their stadium. Yeah, we needed overtime. But at that point in time, they had everything on the table. They were playing their hearts out. At that point in time, I would have said USC was a high caliber team that had 2 unlucky incidents. They lose to Michigan at Michigan by 3 points.
Yep.
They then go to Minnesota, and on the last drive of the game, lose to Minnesota. Yep. And then that very next game of theirs, or I guess they played Wisconsin in between Minnesota and us. So they beat Wisconsin and then come to us and, well, sorry, USC, we ended your hopes for a season. But then they have just tanked since. And the rivalry game of Notre Dame and USC is where, and I believe that game's at USC.
Right. So the committee will look big into that.
Yeah.
But so, ladies and gentlemen, do you agree with Nos's Energy's 12-team playoff outlook there? Aaron, yes or no?
I mean,
do you think we're in? Do you think Penn State's in if we win out?
I was just gonna say, obviously we have to win out. If we lose, it's over. It's over. So
a 2-loss Penn State doesn't get in.
Correct, and I think there's a possibility of that happening. I'm gonna be honest. I think there is. I don't think I will be.
The Minnesota game now concerns me.
That's where I was going to go with. That's where I was going to go.
Fleck knows how to ruin someone's season.
That's where I was going to go. And like I said, if we went out, I agree with you. I agree with what you just went down. I think we make it. I mean, obviously, if we lose, it's over.
But
my 2 upset alerts: Washington.
That's a Saturday. The Saturday night.
This Saturday at 8 p.m. The reason is just if there's a hangover.
Yeah.
And Franklin's tenure has shown us that there typically
can be. There can be. It's not just a one loss. Yeah.
So the thing that I think works in our favor here, it's the whiteout. So I think our fan base lifts it. Yep. I think we get through it.
And then what's the second one?
Minnesota.
So, that's what
I think we're all saying the same thing. I mean, Purdue, usually I'm like, oh, we got to go to West Lafayette. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they suck this year.
You're right. I'm not concerned.
That's one that you should be able to walk into and
dominate.
Yeah, like that should be a 2 or 3 touchdown win if we're taking care of business. And then Maryland, sorry, I think you'll appreciate this. My comments on here are, hey, little brother, welcome to Happy Valley for a turkey stuffed ass whooping.
I said what in the butt. 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 You want to do it in my
They're gonna stop. Yeah, they're gonna stop a fool there.
Yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank NOS Energy here for joining us throughout these segments here about Penn State.
That's right.
It's been a pleasure having you on. It always is a pleasure having you on NOS Energy.
I hope you enjoyed that icy light beer.
Oh, absolutely.
That's right.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely.
But ladies and gentlemen, do you agree with NOS Energy's 12-team playoff outlook there? Drop a comment to us, and please follow us out on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Thank you.